will be first, and the first will be last. That is a tough one, right? It is a tough one. How you guys doing today? You're doing okay? You had a busy week? You are diving deeper into the studies? That is good. That is good. Today, our theme is focusing on God's generosity and the Christian or a disciple's response to that generosity. So God's generosity cannot be imagined. But our response to that must always be one of gratitude and thankfulness. Now, I want to ask you a question. How many of you are in the practice of saying thank you or writing a thank you note when someone has done something special or extraordinary for you, whether your parents, whether your friends, whether your teachers, or whether your church, whatever it is? How many of you, I want to see your hands, raise your hands, really show them that when you receive an act of generosity, you are able to spend some time and just write a thank you note and say thank you. Good. That is good. It's good to know that. Because, the opposite of gratitude towards generosity is ingratitude or ungratefulness. And that is not good. When a person is not grateful, when a person is not appreciative, they cannot easily find happiness. So the Christian response to generosity is gratitude. In our first reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah, the prophet invites us to be in the right disposition of worship. And then that reading says, turn to our God who is generous in forgiving. For God's thoughts are not our thoughts. Turn to our God. That when we come, the beginning of the Mass begins with that penitential rite so that we can prepare our hearts and our soul to worship our divine Master. So that through the liturgy, we will glorify him in the glory and throughout the Mass. But in that process, he sanctifies us. He makes us his holy people, his own people, a people of his own possession. And the responsorial psalm says for us, the Lord is near to all who call upon him. And then it went to the second reading, from Philippians, where St. Paul tells us, for me, he says, to him, life is Christ. In other words, his whole life is Christocentric, is focused on Christ. If you take Christ from his life, he's nothing. And if there's anyone who have experienced the generosity of God, St. Paul, because he was a persecutor of Christians and he was transformed into being an apostle from Saul to Paul. But then he also says this to us, and this is an important line I want you to remember today. He said, conduct yourself in a way worthy of the gospel of Christ. Conduct yourself in the way worthy of the gospel of Christ. The story we heard today, and this brings me to the gospel, is a very, very fascinating story. Every year when I hear it and I read it and I prepare for it, I get different insights in it. And today I want to dive deeper into that story with you. But before I do that, I want to highlight something for you. You see, life is a very important and interesting dynamic. You know why it's important? Because sometimes it's not about the quantity. It is about what? The quality. You see this book here? It just came out from the U.S. Bishop Conference Department on Campus Ministry. According to Newman Connect, the Newman Center Connection, you have over 2,000 Catholic campus ministry throughout the United States. This book, they selected the top 15 that have a very strong program of discipleship. In other words, a program that is able to work with our young people, that is you, this generation, which is the young church and the faith for our future, how we are able to journey with you that is transformative, that engages you both intellectually and spiritually, but also helps you to be a good missionary disciple of Christ. And the Lighthouse is number 7 among the top 15 programs in Catholic campus ministry in the United States. And that is very important and is very impressive because they describe our program. And one of the things that is the hallmark for what we do here that is distinctive and different is our student ministry assistant program and the Bowman Scholar program. But then added to the student ministry assistant program is that faith formation dimension, but also the retreats we have that you articulated in your work, the pilgrimages to the Holy Land and Rome that expose you to the universality of the church, what it means to be a Catholic. That is a church for all God's people, people of every race and nation on earth. They gave you that qualitative experience of being what Christ wants us to be people who are generous in the spirit in our response to the call to discipleship. That is the first time in the history of this institution. We are the only people in the whole state of Georgia, Tennessee, or the whole unit around here. That is Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Savannah area is part of Georgia. You know, where else, Rudy? Mississippi, or we the only that is in here. And then when you go to South Carolina, they have, what's the school there? Duke? I think, is Duke in there? Duke is in there, right? Yeah. Missouri, University of Missouri is there also. So you take a look at that. I ordered some copies, and they will be coming soon. And you take that. But I wanted to just highlight that for you so that you read the newsletters, read your friend's story, so that you can already start to embody what it means to be part of a Newman Center. You see that? And this brings me to the point today, because each of you are to be missionary disciples. You have to be like that landowner that goes out and see, hey friend, why are you idle? Why are you sad? Why is this going on? Come, let's go to the Lord's vineyard. Let's go to pray. Let's go to church. You see that? So each of you become a landowner, a good steward in the house of God through your outreach in ministry. And this whole aspect of evangelization, it was a whole new flash, that a new insight. In all the time I preach on this gospel, it's a whole new insight that each of you, each of us are landowners too. That we have to see those who are living in darkness and bring them into the Lord's marvelous light. There's a lot of people living in the shadow of darkness right now. And they need that light. They need your light. They need you to share it with them. And with that being said, actually that was the conclusion of my homily. Now we come to the body. Let's go into this story we heard today. How many times did this man, this landowner, go out to visit, to call people from the marketplaces? How many times? Who want to try? How many times? Was it one time? Was it 2 times? Was it 3 times? Was it 4 times? Was it 5 times? Okay, all those who say 5 times, raise your hand. Let me see. If it's 5 times, he went out there, raise your hands. 5 times, great. What about those who said 4 times he went out there? 4 times, great. What about those who said 3 times he went out there? Margaret, how many times did he go out there? Was it 5, 4, or 1 time? 4. You were going 4. Okay, so there's one person that said 5. Is that correct? He went out there 5 times. Let's give it to her. So you will get a gift after this Mass. He went out there 5 times. The first time he went, it says at dawn. That will be around 6 a.m. The Jewish working time is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's the day. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So they had a long hour of work. That's a 12-hour shift. And then the next time he went out there was around 9 o'clock. So it says the first time when he went out there, 6 a.m., he had a contract with those people, agreement, that if you do this, I will give you a day wage. A day wage was what they call a denarius. That was a kind of a Roman currency. And on the denarius, you had the face of Caesar. So in the Bible, it says, who should we pay taxes or not? And Jesus said, who faces on the money? They said, Caesar. And he said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. So a denarius will be equivalent to our day standard about $50 US. Okay, so it gives you an idea of what it was that time. And then the next time he went was 9 o'clock. So you have some people who work for 12 hours, and then the 9 o'clock to 6, it will be what? How many hours? 9 hours, right? Good. So then the next group worked what? 9 hours. And then you have the third time when he went, it was around noon. So those other people will work what? 6 hours. And when he went, the fourth time, he did likewise. He said, look, I'm going to pay you what is just. And then the fifth time he went, it says it was around 5 o'clock. So those last group only had 1 hour to work. Now, this is the thing. At the end of the day, the people who were the last that came to work just 1 hour. The landowner told the foreman, I want the last people to come first. And the question is, was it just? Was it a just labor practice that this landowner performed? That's the question. And I want to hear it from you. Was it a just? Who all say it was a just labor practice? Raise your hands like this. And who all, if you say it was not a just labor practice, do like this. So who all like this? Just labor practice, not a just labor practice, not a just labor practice. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so let's do this now. So now, accordingly, for those who said it was an unjust labor practice, the first group that worked for 12 hours, he made a contract, an agreement with them. He said, if you work, I will give you a day wage. That is a denarius. And guess what? He did that. So he fulfilled his contract. So will you still say it was unjust? Okay, so the part that you say it was unjust was, why did he choose them to come last? Okay, so that's it. Okay, but so when it's 6 o'clock, work have stopped. So it's just a matter of you getting your pay. All right, so let's come to the other group that said it was a just labor practice. So it was a just labor practice because according to justice, according to the Socratic definition, is to give each person their due. That is, if I say, if you do this, I will give you that. and we agree on that, and I gave that to you, it is justice. I did not cheat you. Okay? Now, but the place that caused the disgruntled behavior was this. The guys who worked first, they felt they'd been there the whole day. And now these guys that just only came 1 hour, and you made them, that's the term they use in the text, equal to us. So they had a problem with that. They didn't have a problem with how much they got. In their mind, I think they were thinking that, oh, if they give these guys that work 1 hour, 1 denarius, the master will give us 2 denarius. So that was what they were thinking. And when they did not get what they thought they would get, they felt disappointed. They felt hurt. But now, the other question is this. When the master hired them first, he thought he had enough people to harvest the grapes because it's a vineyard. And during the time they were harvesting, if the rain came heavily, it would destroy the grapes. But then he realized that the work was not being done, in my mind, according to the amount of manpower that was there, he thought could do it. Is it possible, because that they were on contract and they knew they would get their pay, is it possible that they didn't put in enough work because they knew whether they work or not, they would get their pay? So I would just take my time and cruise up. And so guess what? It's almost time, and the work is not getting done according to how the master thought it would get done. So the master said, I got to go get more people. And then when he bring the new group, they add more energy. You see them excited working. And especially the last group, because the marketplace, during that time, the marketplace was like job employment center. You go, you hold your thing, I'm a grape, I can harvest. I'm a plumber. I'm a carpenter. And the person will come and select those they want. So, but that's the story. It's a very, very deep story. And today, for us, what I would like to focus on is the fact that this master did not cheat the other guys. And they were upset because he was generous. It brings us back to what I want to get at. As Christians, as Catholics, what is our attitude in the Lord's vineyard? There's a kind of a double dynamic. One dynamic is there's a contract people, and another dynamic is people who are not on contract. And the master said, I'm going to give you what is just. And they trusted the master, and they worked hard. And I think he was satisfied, and he gave them a bonus. He gave them more than they expected, and they were happy. But for us, as people, children of God, do we see ourselves as contracted higher servants, or do we see ourselves as children of God, and therefore are we to behave like good stewards? That this is our place. This is for us. Even if I'm getting stipend for it, I have to take care of it like it is my own, because I'm part of this. You see that? And this brings me to the point of attitude. The story into this gospel highlights for us the generosity of God, that God's ways are not our ways, God's thoughts are not human thoughts, and God's generosity is beyond our imagination. And that's a very important point to take, that our attitude must be of gratitude. In other words, we must have an attitude of gratitude. We must appreciate what